Welcome back to Focus on Art. I'm Latham Woodward, your host, with John McCormick and Sarita Patel. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Good to be back.
It's nice to see you. Sarita, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Latham. Hi, John. I am so excited for this episode.
Good.
Yeah, I wanted to, brief everyone that we're going to be talking about music as an art form today and how music enhances our life. And I'm going to let John take it from here to start us out. John?
Okay. Well, everybody knows music can shift your mood, first and foremost. So, I was thinking of this on the way to the studio today that when I was in college, my roommate every morning would get up and light up a cigarette and put on the loudest music, and it really didn't work for me, but apparently it worked for him. So, I kind of learned to live with that for the short duration that I was in that situation. But music can have a very powerful effect in terms of memory, in terms of enhancing our well-being and mood shifts. Oftentimes, if people are, and you can be informed by music. You can be informed by the music of certain artists who have something to say. It could be not unlike Bob Dylan comes to mind. He was speaking out about issues that certainly resonated with not only this country but around the world, and still do. So that's one aspect of music. Music can calm you down at the end of the day. If you've had a trying day, you can certainly find your center with certain kinds of music. And music can also help you fall asleep. I mean, you can go on Spotify or one of those music providers now and find all kinds of different kinds of sleep aids in music. There's a number of artists I could recommend, but maybe I'll wait till later for that. But there's a whole host of and of course it's been said that music is the kind of cosmic language. It breaks down barriers between people and nations and can form communities of people across the globe. So, music, there's just so many wonderful aspects to music. And of course, if you play an instrument, this goes back to what we've been talking about on these podcasts, it can be a wonderful experience of self-centering and mood shifting and so forth. And if you don't play an instrument, don't feel like you're left out, because just listening to music certainly can have that kind of impact on you as well.
Music is so vital in our energy. Mm-hmm. We have our body, but it's our energy within that actually gets catalyzed with the music.
It does, yeah.
And just even that story that you described with your roommate, whatever that music was that didn't resonate with you resonated with him and got him jumping. And I think, in this time where we all have lots and lots to do,
right.
And lots and lots of rest to have, finding that tune, that sound, whatever it is, whether you're playing it or you're listening to it, if I'm hearing you correctly, it has a profound impact on how you move through your day, so that your energy is actually being used wisely.
That's right. And, there's been all kinds of neurological studies, I always come back to this, but on how music, and this is very recent within the last, again, 40 years or so, how it can be useful in terms of helping people with Parkinson's disease and dementia. I think one of the most striking examples of that I've seen in the last few years was there was a special on the great singer Tony Bennett, And
Yeah.
and towards the end of his life, he had severe dementia. I mean, he could not even remember who he was with when he was talking to them and his wife. And Lady Gaga put together a big concert at
I remember.
Radio City Music Hall
Yeah.
for his 90th birthday. And, everybody was a little nervous. Is he going to get out in front of this packed house with a big orchestra behind him? How's he going to do? And just before he went out there, and he had been working with Lady Gaga on this, he didn't even recognize her. But as soon as the curtain came up and the band, kicked in, Tony was Tony, and it was all up in his head, and it was in his brain, and all the right chemistry was working, and he sang like a champ. And so music, they're really starting now to discover the therapeutic value of music, for people with those different kinds of ailments. So, yeah.
I pulled out all of my old CD collection the other day, which I was unaware was as big as it was, which is several thousand CDs. And I got my old clip speakers out, and I got all my old, equipment out, and I started listening to individual CDs. And it's an interesting experience. It's not like streaming,
Right.
and the quality is very high, which especially I'm running through a DAC, so it's got really good sampling, but it's enjoyable. And I can't remember who said this to me, but I think it might have been Steve Cabela. You listen to an album because that's how the artist created it. It's a story. It's not one song. It's a compendium that forms a story, and that's why albums are important. It's not just one thing. It's not the single that was on the top 40. It was this whole thing. It's like a Pink Floyd album.
Right.
I get a kick out of YouTube, these reaction videos, if you've seen these, where these young urban kids, they're like 20 to 30, and they're like, I've never heard Pink Floyd before, but this rocked my world.
Yeah.
That kind of thing is really interesting, and it just shows you the depth of how it can impact you.
Right. I mean, the whole idea of a conceptual album, a lot of people would point to Sgt. Pepper was the first conceptual album where
Absolutely.
from start to finish. And then of course, like so much of what the Beatles did, everybody tried to find their own version of it. But even before that, when an artist would do an album, usually it was 12 songs, there would be a theme. You can go back to Frank Sinatra, or even before that, there'd always be some thematic, which would tell the story of where that artist was in his or her life. And if you listen to the full work of any artist, you can see that if they've been around for more than one album, you can see that they've had this evolution in their work, and you can see the ups and downs, and it is a story. It is telling a story, about that particular artist.
It is.
Yeah, and a lot of artists in our time, their music is about themselves. Somebody like James Taylor, he would openly admit, I write my songs are about me, and thank God that the people appreciate that and can relate to it. So.
Yeah, or Carly Simon.
Right.
So much about Carly Simon. And I watched something the other day about Carole King, probably one of America's greatest songwriters.
Right.
And her extremely crazy personal life.
Oh, yeah.
Being controlled by her boyfriend, and or / husband.
Goffin, was that?
Yeah, I think so. And he was just like an aspiring artist who had no talent.
Oops.
And so it was a bad scene, and you go, well, you're Carole King. Okay, you're Carole freaking King. You should Why aren't you with a Mozart? You know?
Well, and don't you think that the reason these artists were so successful is because other people could immediately relate their lives to another who happened to have the talent of those vocal cords in a way.
Right.
And, you know, what both of you touched upon is the album. I mean, an album is a collection. You know, if you think about a photo album, it's a collection of a trip.
Album art is
huge.
significant
Yeah.
in the storytelling.
Right.
And they did not monkey around. They got good artists
Yeah.
who saw their vision.
Right. But then even going back, when you pulled out the CD collection and both of you, you know, the vinyls, you had to literally put the pin on the track of the sound that you wanted to listen to if you weren't going to listen to the whole
Right.
album. So everything was so intentional, which automatically brings that awareness that you're doing, you know, something that is artful. And so just circling back to what you're talking about, John, about how important it is to have these musical pieces in our life. And this is a great start, right? Because the streaming, while this is all very, very convenient, I don't think it's really helping people understand the impact that music actually does have on our mental health and our physical health. Would that be accurate?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I think, you know, music, like I said earlier, it's the universal language, and it impacts people, you know, in a very emotional way. And, you know, if they're going through a tough time, they'll listen to some sad songs and they'll not feel so alone in their struggle, you know, or if they're going through a tough time, they might listen to something that'll lift them out of that. You know, so, I mean, it's hard to say to how anybody and everybody reacts to music. I can certainly speak for myself and say it's been a huge part of my life from the time I was, just, aware.
So did you have musical instruments in your home?
We had a piano, and I had an older sister who was, 7 years older than me. So when I was 7, she was 14, and that's when Elvis. That's how old I am, and that's when Elvis was the first wave of rock and roll happened. And even though I was just a 7-year-old, it totally resonated with me. I mean, I've read, like Bruce Springsteen's biography and so forth, and he says the exact same thing. And he's my age, and he said there was something about the music, because prior to Elvis, the big songs in American culture were pretty subdued kind of music. It was Frank Sinatra and How Much Is That Doggy in the Window and that kind of thing.
Dean Martin.
And along comes this basically a white guy who looked dangerous on national television, who was channeling black music, which had been put on the periphery or the margins of our bigger culture at the time. And all of a sudden it just took off and went around the world, So yeah, I did grow up with instruments in the house, and my father's, my two uncles, one was a piano player in the big band era in Chicago, and another one was had a master's degree in the classical music. So there was certainly something in the gene pool, and I just was always interested in what in the sounds of things, like what makes that sound. So I would read books on everything that makes up an orchestra, the brass section, the string section, things like that, just to understand sound. And because it would affect me, it wasn't an idle kind of thing. It was, these things touched me,
Can I relate a impactful story that I once had I bought a car at an auction in Dallas, Texas. And, I'll cut to the chase here. The car was stolen from the auction, and I had to have the sheriffs go get it, right? So I had to fly down suddenly. It was my CD collection with me, or what I wanted to travel with, and I was driving this car back. And I stopped in New Mexico and visited my friend Martha Fussell, who was the Acoma Indian Puebla chief, taking over from her father. So I was like just grooving on this Indian stuff, American Indian stuff with her, and then I was driving through, and I was going through these tribal lands, and if that past the Texas Panhandle where you're going into New Mexico, it's stunning. It's overwhelmingly stunning. And I had CDs that I still have them, of all these native Hawaiian singers, and I'm playing. I can't remember who it was, but it was very ancient kind of chant singing, Hawaiian chant singing. And I'll be damned if I didn't break into tears when I was listening to through this landscape. Yeah. Because it was just so powerful, overwhelmed me. I had to pull over.
Yeah, kind of an aha moment.
It was just like, whoa, this is really connecting me to this landscape right now.
Yeah.
It's the only time it's really happened to me.
The power of music.
It is the power of music. And it's strong, it's palpable, it's real.
Yeah, I mean, and you touched on a good point too. Tribal music, music. For me, I've kind of done a study on how did it evolve. It came out of indigenous peoples. How did classical music evolve? These are all interesting. That came out of folk music. I mean, all of a sudden, there wasn't just a Bach one day. That all built up for quite hundreds of years, and we have this thing called Bach and Mozart and Beethoven, and so it's interesting. It started at the grassroots level, you could say, and here we are today, channeling it through all kinds of electronic devices. And this might be a interesting point to talk a little bit about that, about how how the pipeline that we receive music from, and how that works in our lives now in the culture. So
now we're all in this room old enough to remember the hideous 8-track tape in people's cars, in someone's Camaro or something, right? and for those of you who are under a certain age here and you're listening to this, they were ginormous, and they look like a book basically,
right.
And you'd insert them into your car dashboard, and then sometimes, depending on the track length, it would cut off.
Yeah.
And then it would take a second, and it would flip into the next track, which was crazy.
Yeah, it's a little unreliable.
Yes, it was unreliable. But now we're in records, right? And I still had some 17s from my father, 33s, 45s.
Right.
And having, you're talking about having the cassettes. Remember the cassettes? And then we moved
boxes of those.
And then we moved into the higher end cassettes, which were the metal tape ones. You remember those?
But don't forget reel to reel.
Oh God, yeah. So my dad was super into reel to reel. All his great jazz was on reel to reel.
Yeah.
And then we went into the era of, the CD and a mini disc, which I still have one, and I love the mini disc. It's fantastic quality.
Right.
And then now we're into streaming and MP3s and lossless and AAF, and it's almost too much at this point.
Well, you just got to roll with the tide. I mean, I think it's wonderful. You get on a plane now and you can have any kind of music you want. There was times when I was on a plane and didn't have any of that, and you can put on some. If you're have a little fear of flying like I do, you put on that Zen music, and you forget all your worries, and you're So there's a lot of ways to experience music now. I still encourage people to go out and support artists who are actually playing somewhere and experience live music, because it's important to support the arts, but also there's nothing that replaces the experience of actually watching someone perform music, whether it's a symphony hall or a club or something.
you're not short for options with music anymore.
No.
Whether it's over the airwaves through satellite or whether it's traditional radio. What I like most of all, though, was streaming or your handheld devices or your phone.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have, it's just like being at home. You don't have to experience ads on TV anymore.
Right.
When my daughter goes to my mother's house, her grandmother, and she experiences advertisements on TV, she's like, what are these things?
Yeah.
You know, it's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the fact that you have a lot of music to choose from, but I'm also constantly challenged by thinking about what my mood is and what do I want to listen to.
Right.
Can I ask one question about
Sure.
that? Because you guys know that I don't listen to a lot of music, and that's not because I don't like music. I didn't really have it in my life except for that Rig Veda, Indian classical music. So I'm sure that did something for me.
Sure.
But I didn't have record albums or listen to records like all my friends did. Whatever. What do you think about some music that's out there that might actually not be good for you?
No, there's definitely. Like with me in my last career, I was regularly going to events where there was a lot of hip hop, and it was very misogynistic, very racist, and it was hard for me. And I complained regularly to some of these festival people. It's like, this doesn't work for me, and I'm paying to be here to have this huge tent with my brand here, and I have to listen to this very, very obtrusive, mean-spirited, misogynistic music that, you know, I don't want to even say the words, but they're pretty horrible. You know, it's just like, this is disrespecting women on a level I've never even heard before.
Right. Yeah, I thought about that on the way over here today. You know, music runs the gamut from, you know, beautiful, inspiring music to music that's kind of summoning up our darker angels, you know. And I mean, there's been a lot of, you know, growing awareness of that because it affects, you know, young teenagers and, you know, who are very impressionable. And, you know, years ago there was a movement to put censorship notices on albums, you know,
Tipper Gore,
which didn't go anywhere. And you know, but I kind of understood it and could see, because, you know, you find out that young people especially are affected in a very detrimental way by what some artist might be singing about, and it takes them down the wrong path. So those are real concerns, and you know, I don't know that I have the answer for it, certainly, but it's something that, you know, is out there and is just part of that, you know, that musical landscape.
There is an argument to be said that Tipper Gore was the reason that music got more misogynistic, more violence prone, more, because the pushback was huge.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
You were going to say, Sarita?
Yeah, I was just, you know, and I don't want to focus on the negative, but, you know, based on our talks about even visual arts, last time we talked about, you know, some of Picasso's pieces that were misogynistic, we're speaking to a part of his life that led to that, and yet we're looking at that. So we're always going to be exposed to things that represent what that artist is expressing for us. Yep. Right? And then it always comes down to a matter of discernment. And I think what I was really kind of coming after is, you know, in this age of being bombarded by lots of distractions, you know, how do we, I mean, there's no answer here. I think we're just talking about it. We're all old enough to know what is going to make us feel good and make us feel kind of low. And we know how to adjust that dial. Right. And I think when you've got advertising pushing what might be popular, and I think our young people are more influenced by what's popular versus what makes them feel good. Not all, but many.
Yeah.
And so they might just be growing up feeling bad and not even knowing it because they're listening to what's popular. And, adds to, just sort of the many crises that we're in today.
Well, you make a good point, and young people want to feel like not, they're part of a larger community, and they don't. There's a lot of isolation out there, and and so if you connect through music with some community, and it doesn't necessarily always mean it's a positive connection, but we can only hope that people, cycle through those things and don't do something that's bad for their community or for themselves. Ultimately. Having said that, there's probably nothing new under the sun. I mean, there's probably always been some kind of shaman that did some dark thing back in tribal times, and he had an audience or she had an audience, and so these
you can bank on that.
and so these things have been around, and we just live in a time where where you can do it now, and it goes around the world in pretty short amount of time. So
we were talking about the indigenous sounds, the beating of a drum, the pounding on the ground, and often that was the sound that was made for God, who, this creation was starting with the sound. But my parents used to tell us these stories about villages during the drought seasons. They would go out and chant and sing to the skies for rain. And, then you have two villages who are competitive with each other, and so they might be drumming to a different beat, singing to a different beat, trying to make sure that rain doesn't rain over there, but it's raining over here. So
God forbid they get water. Oh my goodness.
So you're right. There's nothing new under the sun.
Right. So these impulses in man have probably been around forever. Again, in our time, you can do it, post it, and it'll go around the world in a day,
in a nanosecond.
Yeah.
Well, we should talk about something that's new that's under the sun. It's kind of because I've been a victim of it in the last week, and it's not fun or friendly. It's a third parties claiming rights over people and their art, and it's really troubling to me that you have people who are not artists. They're not producers. They're not the people to put the music out. Even they're third parties that come in and claim music that's on YouTube or TV, or you're using it at a bar or a restaurant. I mean, there's a whole nefarious group out there, and I don't want to dwell on this because I don't want to give them more press. But there is a change.org petition out there to stop this. So if you guys listening are on change.org, look this up. And try to stop third-party poaching because they want to get royalties they're not entitled to, and that's stealing from the artists.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, Latham, because I call those people the bag men. They're just scooping up a little bit of money, and they're not creators.
Yeah. Oh, completely.
They're
not.
And so people who are not creators will have always taken from the creative and tried to exploit that. And so we're watching another faster version, and so as more creative people put their content on these platforms so others can enjoy, whether they get monetized or not is not why they're creating the music in the first place. And then you have these third parties just waiting there. So we're all watching these things. And that's why I think it was so important to have somebody like John McCormick on here who has a variety of art forms. And has made a living out of, being an artist.
Now, John, you're not getting paid huge money being a musician, but you do get fed and get drinks occasionally, right?
Yeah, and just to clarify, I do it because it feeds me in an inner sort of way, and it's a lot of fun to do. But being a musician is not my bread and butter. No.
You are an amazing musician. If you haven't seen the video of John at his studio, I do put a little snippet of John playing, and he's fantastic. So,
thank you.
Yeah, you are. You're a great mandolin player. I love your mandolin and your guitar. Your guitar is great too.
Thank you.
I want to ask John a question about something that is just it happens, but it's seeming to be even more kind of weird. Is sampling.
Oh yeah.
Sampling is. I don't know where it is good or it's bad. I know that some artists do pay the original artist for their sampling.
Oh, okay.
You know, so I obviously I think that's fantastic. But I know that, you know, a lot of people just take advantage of it and they do their 7 seconds or whatever and they never pay up.
Yeah, I have to plead ignorance on this a little bit because I'm aware of it, and there's some, like, hip hop and rap music where they generally, that's where they use it, is in that kind of art form, and you seem to know more than me about if the original artist gets compensated or not. I would think it would be there'd be laws copyright laws certainly, that would keep people from doing it indiscriminately. Although some artists might do it as a homage to that particular artist. I'm going to put a little bit of this artist's work in my work out of a sense of paying respect, even at them. Yeah. But even at that, it would seem you'd have to clear it with the publisher and, the estate of, or whatever. The estate of, because we live in a kind of crazy, crazy world where you do something like that, you're really putting yourself in harm's way, and you could suffer the consequences financially for stealing somebody's art. So I did teach a class at the university level that touched on copyright law, and copyright laws, it's easy to copyright your art form, whether it's visual or music or whatever. This class was mostly about visual art, and but when you get up in front of a judge and there's some dispute about if this person stole your work or used it unlawfully, it can be up to how the judge determines at that day, at that moment in time. So, yeah.
Well, to get off this sour subject, I want to talk to someone who's really a great person for music, and that is the founder of Patreon, Jack Conte. Okay. And he was part of the duo Pamplemousse. If you're not familiar with Pamplemousse, they're incredible. Yeah. They're truly incredible. I can't remember I think it was his wife, Natalie Dawn. She is an incredible vocalist, but he came out with Patreon, and he actively supports artists through you're able to become a patron of individual artists out there, and it's an amazing platform supporting artists for art's sake. And Patreon is now branched out to videos, is branched out to many different areas, the arts. And so Jack Conte is one of those rare, great people in the arts, is really propelling the arts in a right direction. Now, I'm not going to say there's not tons of other people out there who are propelling art in the right direction. There's patrons everywhere for visual arts, for painting, for other forms of music, spoken word, books. But there are, it's rare to find these things. I do find that the PBS series, the Tiny Desk concerts, are incredibly well done as well.
Yeah.
So there's some good bright spots out there.
Oh yeah.
And I have to agree with you, John, when you said your comment about supporting artists in their natural environment, and that would be performing.
Right.
That's huge. And as someone who went to a lot of concerts when I was a kid, I pulled out some tickets the other night just to see who I saw, and it's just amazing, like Day on the Green and seeing Susie and the Banshees live at, Oakland Stadium, and Rita Marley and Peter Tosh. I've seen so many.
And how much did you pay for those tickets?
$16 to see Peter Tosh.
Today it would be
400.
400, right?
I mean, it's absolutely obscene what some of these tickets cost. But I have to say that most artists now who are on tour make most of their money on tour.
Yeah.
Almost, I think it's 90% of their money comes from being on tour. So a lot of that money is going straight to the artist, which is good.
That's really,
which is unusual.
That started, I guess, when music became a commodity on like Spotify and Apple Music. And people weren't buying records or CDs anymore, so the artist's main source of income, was to get out and on the road and perform. And
well, the Grateful Dead made the majority of their money touring. That and swag, but then the swag got away from him. It was just
And
all
they
the guys
could
in
have
the parking
cared
lot.
less. I mean,
Exactly.
They were so, and they let everybody, they set up a whole section in their live performances for people that, bootleg their music.
Oh, my brother he toured with him because he was dating a girl who was part of the quote unquote family.
Yeah.
So he toured with him for 11 years.
Oh my gosh.
And he has cases and cases of DAT tapes, which we didn't mention before,
Right.
straight off the soundboard.
Right.
And it was just incredible that they let you do that.
And it actually enhanced their actual record sales, and then more people wanted to come to their concerts.
Yeah.
It all worked for them. They're just a phenomenal story. Goes without saying, I suppose. But I just little shout out to the Grateful Dead, since we live in Marin County here.
We literally live in the town where most of them live. We live 2 blocks from where Jerry was at Janis Joplin's memorial service at the Lion's Share. 2 blocks this way.
Well, there is a 6-part series I just watched. I want all the listeners to check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it. It was I've watched several things on the Grateful Dead. This was by far the most, really got down into some detail about their early days, and it was co-produced by Martin Scorsese, and so I think it's called Long Strange Trip.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a great series. So if you want to have some fun and enjoy some Grateful Dead music, kick back and watch that.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yes, and another thing I wanted to bring up is that I have a 24-year-old daughter, she's about to be 24. I don't want to insult her. She said that a lot of their contemporaries are going back to older music because they're storytellers, not just a riff. So songwriters actually were telling a little vignette, and it's a different thing than now. You do get that sometimes in the country genre with the classic tropes. My truck broke down, my wife left me, my dog died, and
My coffee's cold.
and my grandma's calling me for dinner. So, but you don't get those like Cat Stevens, aka Yusuf Islam, his new name. You don't get that, that kind of tale.
No, I have my 2 sons that are, they're in their mid 30s now, but for years after they have their own kind of music that they listen to, but they really revere the music of my era, which I'm happy to know about. And one time they were having a conversation in the backseat of my car. This is when they were, I think, probably in their early 20s, and they were talking about all the music they liked. But they said the music of the 60s and 70s, it was poetic. They said poetic.
It's true.
And it had, it does have it. That comes out of that whole era of Bob Dylan and everybody after him, pretty much.
But I think that we covered a lot of it. I mean, I think that the idea here is, you find genres you like. Nobody likes just one genre of music. You think you might, but there's stuff out there that you may not have identified yet.
Well, and that's why the movies started making soundtrack albums.
True.
Because it's a variety of music that tells a long story of, the story.
That's true.
And that's why we ended up buying soundtracks. Whoever came up with that idea was brilliant.
Well, I know that you mentioned Martin Scorsese, and he's famous for his soundtracks. He's also famous for being an amazing supporter of jazz.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he has his own jazz series out there on, I can't remember if it's Decca or something like that. He's an amazing guy, too. Also a big supporter of the arts.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned soundtracks. When I was a little boy and I'd go to a movie, I was maybe I was certainly conscious of how the music was playing on my emotions as I watched the movie, to the extent that I would go out and buy the movie soundtrack. This was like, when it was, mostly kind of almost like classical music, and that kind of changed in the late 60s with The Graduate.
Yeah.
Who was the director of The Graduate? I'm trying to remember. Nichols. Mike Nichols. Mike Nichols would come home and he would look at the rushes for the day and all the shots and scenes they had done for The Graduate, and he would put on Simon and Garfunkel music to kind of calm himself down or whatever, and then he realized it was really working with the different scenes that he had filmed that day and directed, and so that ended up becoming part of the soundtrack, and that changed the way movie makers saw. They knew they could take popular music and put it as the soundtrack for a whole movie.
Yeah.
Identifiable. Well, and two things like Sergio Leone with his amazing soundtracks of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and so many spaghetti westerns. I mean, it's identifiable as a time, a place, and so engaging. And then Sarita's old employer, Star Wars and John Williams, and that whole classical kind of take on this very young person oriented movies, very interesting.
And that brings up a kind of an interesting debate that's gone on for a long time, is where does movie music become acceptable classical music? I mean, you mentioned the spaghetti westerns.
Sergio Leone,
Yeah, the guy that did those sound scores for those movies was Enrico Morricone.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And he did beautiful music that now they're saying, well, this is definitely classical.
Oh, I've seen a live performance of that.
I mean, there was a movie called The Mission, and he was up for an Academy Award for that music score, and a lot of his music was nominated.
Focus on Art is a production of Crashing Boar Productions at Madmanas Studios in beautiful San Anselmo, California. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. We appreciate it. Until next time, we'll see you here.